At an age meant for playing in childhood, his father was struck by paralysis. How did a man who once cleaned septic tanks become the owner of a fortune worth 18,500 crore rupees? David Walentas. It is 5 in the morning. Outside, the cold is biting. A small child wakes up with sleepy eyes, milks the cows, lifts the dung, and then runs to catch the school bus. After returning from school, he has to do the same all over again. No rest, no childhood, no assurance that life will get better ahead. If someone had told that child that one day the same boy would become one of the most talked about names in New York real estate, would change the fate of an entire part of Brooklyn, and would become the owner of billions of dollars, shayad nobody would have believed it. But that is the story of David Walentas, a man who rose from poverty, humiliation, filth and conditions that seemed impossible, and got his name written among those people whose decisions changed the shape of cities. According to Forbes, in 2026 his net worth is around $2 billion, which in Indian rupees is roughly 18,500 crore. David Walentas' childhood was nothing like a comfortable family upbringing. According to a recent Forbes profile, when he was only 5 years old, his father, who worked at the post office, suffered a stroke and became paralyzed. The financial backbone of the house suddenly broke. His mother tried to hold the home together by doing 2 jobs, but the situation became so bad that David and his brother had to be sent to nearby farms to live and work. Remembering that period himself, Walentas said they were kind of like orphans or indentured slaves. This was not literary exaggeration, it was the truth of his childhood. Work in the morning, school in the day, then work again in the evening. Childhood came to him in small measure. Responsibilities came in far greater measure. This was the age when most children learn how to play, but David learned survival. Working in the fields taught him that life gives no one special treatment. If you want to rise, you may have to do even the kind of work that others feel disgusted by. That is why, later in life, he built a different philosophy for himself. Take up the kind of work that others run away from, because that is where competition is the lowest. This came through clearly later in his conversation with Forbes as well, where he shared many lessons from his life. Ambition in him had not come from any motivational seminar. It had come from humiliation, hardship, and deprivation. The biggest damage of poverty is not just the lack of money, but also the lack of direction. David told Forbes that, in his time, going to college was not a normal thing for children from poor families. He found no mentor, no guide, no one who held his hand and showed him the way. Then one day, while sitting in the principal's office in high school, his eyes fell on a Navy ROTC scholarship poster. He filled out the form himself. According to Forbes, he put the University of Virginia among his choices because the name was short and he thought maybe it would be warmer there. Sometime later, the selection letter arrived, and that one moment became the turning point of his life. Later, he said that college changed his entire life. One thing here is very important. David did not come from any privileged pipeline. He was not from a family where college planning, internships, and career tracks were discussed over the dinner table. Reaching the University of Virginia was not just education for him, it was an escape route. Later, he studied mechanical engineering there, and then also earned an MBA from Darden. That combination, technical understanding and business thinking, became his biggest strength later on. Many people only grow tired from hardship, but Walentas made hardship part of his decision-making system. Poverty did not make him insecure, it made him unusually tough. But the struggle did not end there. Forbes' 2026 report says there was also a time when David Walentas sold blood just to fill his stomach. He said that in New York, he earned his first $10 of those early days by selling 1 pint of blood, and with that he bought food, put fuel in the car, and returned to Rochester. This detail is not just shocking. It shows both the desperation and the toughness of that man. The person whose net worth is in billions today had once turned even the blood in his body into cash in order to survive. Such things sound cinematic, but it was from these very dark phases that his hunger for taking risks was born. In that same recent Forbes conversation, another striking episode appears. One summer, David worked as a laborer at Thule Air Base in Greenland, where he cleaned military septic tanks. This was not some supervisory job. He would climb down into the tank, scrub the filth off the walls, and keep doing that same work for long hours. He chose the kind of jobs that people wanted to avoid. That is why his personal mantra became, "No guts, no glory." If this sentence is read lightly, it sounds like an ordinary self-help line. But when you read it in the context of a man who lifted dung, sold blood, and cleaned septic tanks, its weight changes. Most people settle down the moment life gives them some comfort. But people who come out of deprivation carry strange hunger within them. Something like that happened with David Walentas too. After education and early work experiences, he arrived in New York in 1960. In the beginning, he did small real estate deals, and then he began to gain recognition through the work of converting industrial buildings in Soho and NoHo into apartments and co-ops. But his real eye was somewhere else. He could see a future in that part of Brooklyn which, at the time, most people considered a ruined, useless, and risky industrial district. DUMBO, meaning down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. Forbes wrote in 2014 that the area which today looks glamorous like a movie set was once a dying industrial neighborhood, and Walentas had borrowed $12 million 35 years earlier to buy a large part of it. Today, in hindsight, everything looks like smart vision, but at that time the bet looked like madness. DUMBO was not some ready-made gold mine. There were warehouses there, underused industrial buildings, uncertainty, a perception of crime, zoning issues, and distrust from banks. Walentas believed that the entire neighborhood could be developed through an integrated vision. He had told Forbes that the greatest beauty of DUMBO was that we got the whole neighborhood. That meant if you increase the value of one building, the value of the next one would rise too. But banks do not easily give money for such ideas. Vision does not show up in a banker's spreadsheet. It shows up in the entrepreneur's eye. When traditional funding did not come easily, David Walentas found an alternative path. According to recent Forbes reporting, he convinced cosmetics billionaires Ronald and Leonard Lauder to trust his vision and secured private loans of $6 million from them. Together with the remaining borrowing, he bought almost 2 million square feet of property, almost the entire neighborhood. That was the moment that took his career in a completely different direction. The man who had once worked on a farm, who had sold blood to eat, was now placing a huge bet on an entire geography of New York. That is the difference between a survival mentality and an empire mentality. Walentas carried both within him. Even then, doing a deal and making a deal successful are two different things. DUMBO could not be turned into a luxury neighborhood overnight. Zoning restrictions, political resistance, the state's policy of preserving manufacturing, tenant issues, and financing pressure. All of them blocked the way. Older Forbes reporting and other profiles show that his plan faced obstacles for a long time. Even a major Wall Street office deal had collapsed. But Walentas did not give up. That was his greatest trait. He was never afraid of going against the market. Where others saw risk and stepped back, he saw future value in that same risk. After years of persistence, DUMBO became an example of residential and commercial transformation. Today, the name Two Trees Management is known as the force that changed Brooklyn neighborhoods like DUMBO and Williamsburg. Forbes' 2026 Billionaire profile says that David Walentas' firm, Two Trees Management, is known for transforming Brooklyn neighborhoods such as DUMBO and Williamsburg. This was not just the business of buildings, it was the business of urban imagination. Turning a neglected area into a desirable one is not just a matter of bricks and mortar. For that, you need timing, patience, capital, design sense, and stubborn conviction. That is what makes Walentas different from other developers. He did not just buy property, he bought a narrative. He saw a future in a place where everyone else was seeing decay. And many times, fortunes worth billions are built exactly where the majority sees only danger. But the most interesting thing in any success story is not wealth, but wisdom. In Forbes' 2026 feature, David Walentas shared some major lessons from his life. The first lesson was, choose the right life partner. He called his wife Jane his biggest deal. In his words, marriage was the best deal I ever made. He also said that we do not teach children how important it is to choose the right partner. Jane was not just his wife, she was part of his trajectory. According to reports, Jane also played a role in connecting him to the Lauder family circle, which later had an important impact on financing and career growth. For Walentas, marriage was not only an emotional decision, but also a strategic turning point. The second major lesson was, do not own something you cannot control. He learned this from an early investment experience. He had bought a farmhouse, but had a bad experience with broker-led management. That was when he understood that ownership does not mean merely buying an asset, but also understanding and managing it. The same philosophy appeared later in the model of Two Trees, where the company kept direct control over its properties and held a long-term development vision. In real estate, many people buy, but not everyone can build an ecosystem. Walentas had understood that delegated control often becomes a hidden risk. The third lesson was, trust your inner voice. He told young people that when you are young, the whole world lies before you. If you fail, start again. This line sounds powerful coming from him, because he himself had restarted life many times from ground level. Farm worker, scholarship student, blood seller, laborer, consultant, developer. His identity changed many times. He did not follow one fixed path. He created paths. That is why his story does not feel like the kind of success printed on motivational posters. It feels rough, imperfect, risky, and deeply human. There is another subtle, but very deep thing hidden in David Walentas' story. Many people come out of poverty wanting only a safe life. Walentas did not bet on safety. He bet on scale. Perhaps the reason was that same difficult childhood of his. Someone who has seen labor, humiliation, and uncertainty at a very young age is not satisfied later with ordinary comfort. He wants something big. So big that all past lack begins to look small. His bet on DUMBO seems to have come out of that very mentality. It was not just business, it was also a rebellion against his past. Today, when people look at his $2 billion net worth, they see the billionaire title. But the scenes behind that title are harsher. 5 in the morning on the farm, a paralyzed father, a mother buried in work, a scholarship poster, the stench of a septic tank, blood sold to fill the stomach, and then a life-defining bet placed on an entire ruined neighborhood. That is why his story inspires, but does not romanticize. It tells us that success is often built less by talent and more by tolerance. The tolerance to bear pain, the tolerance to bear uncertainty, and the tolerance to bear the doubt of the world. Perhaps the biggest essence of David Walentas' entire journey is this. In life, some people wait for opportunity, and some turn compulsion itself into opportunity. Walentas belonged to the second category. When his father fell ill, he did not learn to break. When he was sent to the fields, he did not learn to shrink under shame. When there was no money, he did not learn to think small work was beneath him. And when the banks doubted him, he did not reduce the value of his vision. That is why his story is not just the story of a real estate tycoon. It is the story of a man who had the courage to tell the world, "My circumstances will not decide my future." And perhaps the other name for that courage is, no guts, no glory. If this video has taught you something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.